As a supervisor, I wasn't growing as an analyst. I was taking care of other people and making sure that they were growing, and I really missed doing the work. The challenges that these officers gave me, it drove me to want to do better every day. If you really want to do well in this field and you really want to make an impact, you're going to have to bring everyone along for the ride. It can't just be you, and in order to see that you're doing some good or making a difference in an agency, you have to bring everyone with you.
What's going on, analysts? Welcome to the channel where we talk about all things crime analysis. In this video, I spoke with an analyst from the Fusion Center at the Virginia State Police. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm in Chicago at the IACA conference, and among the over 600 attendees, I had the opportunity to interview an analyst I met a decade ago at the MACA conference in Massachusetts. Chanthu Terwilliger is currently working as an intelligence analyst with the Virginia State Police in the Fusion Center. I asked Chanthu to talk to me about her personal and professional journey as a student seeking a career in law enforcement, and also what inspires her to keep her passion for this profession. And here's what she said.
So Chanthu Terwilliger, originally from Lowell, Massachusetts, but now I live in Virginia at Smith Mountain Lake. I'm one of 12, so one of 12 kids. Right in the middle, so I have 6 older, 5 younger, 9 girls, 3 boys. And I'm the only one that moved away. So yeah, so everyone is still in New England and live pretty close to my parents, and I'm a little jealous, but I think I made the right decision. I still go see my parents on Sundays and go watch football with my dad, and so they're all really close, so I do miss that. Try to make it up there at least once a year, and I'll be going back up for Thanksgiving this year, which I haven't done in like 10 years. So yeah, trying to make my parents proud, and they came over after the Khmer Rouge as refugees, and so my 2 oldest siblings were born in Cambodia and Thailand, and then the rest of us were born here. So my parents don't really talk about their time there, and I don't blame them. I've never really asked them because I could see how much it hurts them. Like when we were younger, we would ask questions, but instead, when I went to UMass Lowell for, I have a bachelor's in criminal justice, psychology, and technology, but there was a genocide class, like surviving genocide, and so I ended up taking that class. And it was funny because when the professor walked in, I'm pretty sure I recognized him, and he ended up being in a book that my parents were in. So he was the first, I think it was the first American that married a Cambodian like refugee or something. And I went and I spoke to him after class, and I said, you're in this book, because I remember seeing pictures, and my parents are in that book too. So I learned a lot about what my parents went through, and explained a lot about why they react to certain things or how they react to certain things, and so I didn't have to ask them the questions. Instead, I kind of learned about their past through a class. But so I think I've always been drawn to public safety and serving, and it wasn't until high school where I ended up getting an internship with our school resource officers, and it was a little different because even where I am in Virginia, like now, the SROs do a little bit of different work, and I think being from an inner city, Lowell, Massachusetts, that the SROs were very hands-on and very proactive, and just part of their job is just really connecting with the students and being able to have a pulse on everything. But I did an internship with them, and I told them that I wanted to be a police officer, and I was just going to take the test, go into the academy right after, and they told me, don't be stupid, go to school. So they said for officers there, if you have a degree, the higher the levels, then you get paid more. So that was my intention, was to just go to school, get a degree, and then become a police officer to get paid more. When I was in college, I went through 4 years of not taking a language, and I thought I was doing myself a favor. I just didn't want to take a language, but my advisor told me that I had to choose a concentration then. So I was already getting my bachelor's in criminal justice and getting a minor in psychology. And he said if I didn't do the language, now I have to do a concentration. I chose technology. That put me into Dawn Reeby's class, and she saw something in me, which I know for sure I did not see it in me. Her class had a lot of presenting. You had to do a lot of presentations. She would give you different examples of crime sprees, and you had to use the bits of information to do a next hit prediction. And I told her that I was not very comfortable presenting, and so instead she had my classmates present what their answers were, and then she asked me in front of them what I thought of their predictions. And I kept thinking she's going to make everyone in this class hate me, but she spoke to me after class, and she said that, I remember she said, "I think you have it," and I didn't know what that meant. I was like, "Have what?" And she just said, I think you have the ability to do really well in this field," and that meant a lot to me. I just kind of ran with it, and I asked her, "Well, what do I do, and how do I get into this field?" I didn't even know crime analysis was a thing, and but I really liked her class because of you're literally just taking puzzle pieces and then figuring out this bigger picture, and I did like that, so I enjoyed doing that. And she ended up helping me get an internship with Lowell Police Department and with their crime analysis unit, and introduced me to MACA, so Massachusetts Association of Crime Analysts. And if it weren't for MACA, I don't think I would be where I am. So I think she introduced me to a lot of good analysts, and not only civilian analysts, but sworn analysts. And I think that really spoke to me because I wanted to be a police officer, and I saw that there are actually police officers that did crime analysis. So you get to be a little tough, but also be nerdy at the same time. But yeah, and then it was the people at MACA really that I think they saw something in me, and they pretty much guided me to where I am now. And being at this conference, it's great because I had no idea that all of these people from MACA were going to be here, and I haven't seen them in 10 years. And so yeah, it's like a homecoming, but I mean, we're in Chicago, so we're not really in either of our homes, but it's been really nice. And I presented the other day, and Glenn and Dawn were in the crowd, and it probably meant more to me that well, Dawn came to talk to me after, and that was nice, and it's kind of like full circle. So, because I told her I didn't like presenting, and then here I am presenting at this conference, and I don't know. No, but Glenn came up to me after and gave me a hug and said he was really proud of me, and yeah, so I think I try to work as hard as I do, not only for me and my parents who worked really hard to get, well, honestly to support me too, but for the people from MACA that believed in me. So, yeah. So I did the internship with Lowell, and then I took like a couple like side jobs just to make some money, and I also volunteered. So I believe it was North Attleboro. Their police chief was actually at a MACA conference, and I just told him like my interest in just getting some experience. They didn't have an analyst. Eventually they would go on to hire an analyst, but that was after I ended up taking the job in Virginia. So, but he gave me a shot too, and all he did was he said, "Hey, we're having a bunch of like car break-ins, and I could send you those reports, and if you can look into it and see, how you can help us." And so I just did that just to get some experience. But Glenn actually sent me the job posting in Virginia, and he said, "I don't think you have anything holding you here besides your family." I wasn't seeing anyone, wasn't married or anything, and He said it would be a really good opportunity because Roanoke Police Department was building a unit, their first intel unit, and he said there would be an opportunity for advancement pretty quickly. And I mean, New England is a great place to work, and I feel like you definitely grow very quickly there, but I think I would not have had that opportunity to actually be a part of a unit and then advancement pretty quickly if I didn't go to Roanoke. So I did a little road trip with my friend, went down to Roanoke. They had a 2-day process for interviews, and they offered me a position. I interviewed in 1 day, and then they said since I'm going back to Massachusetts, they wanted to try to squeeze everything in, and if you met the police chief, then you're pretty much going to get a job offer. And they let me meet him on the first day, and I was driving up and they called me and offered me a job and said I have 2 weeks though, 2 weeks to move down and start. So I took the position, came down, and 3 months later they promoted me to run their intel unit. So part of it was very nerve-wracking because I didn't have that experience to run a unit, but I think they just figured I had the drive to build it into what I thought it should be. And a lot of the things that I tried to instill in those analysts were things that I learned at MACA. I don't know, it all moved pretty fast, but I felt like I had the opportunity to teach some analysts, even some that were there before me. They never had a unit, but they had 2 analysts there. And so kind of being the new person, I did have a lot of challenges though. I was the only one that had come in there from out of state. I didn't know the area, I didn't know a lot of the people I worked with yet. But I made it a point to get out there and wanted to make sure I did some ride-alongs and stuff to understand the city a little better. And then I made the analysts I supervised go out on ride-alongs and made them go talk to the detectives and talk to the officers. And I think that really changed a lot of the perspectives the officers had on the analysts, seeing that they can go out there and actually be a part of the department, like not just be someone that's sending an email and they're getting a bulletin or some sort of product that they couldn't, they knew who the analysts were. It was just more of a personal touch that we're here and we're a part of this department. And the department itself went through a whole reorganization when I came in, so that was tough too. Some officers and detectives got moved around in positions they may not have wanted to go to. Some new units were created, and I think the department saw it as, oh, it's because this intel unit is being made, and that's why there's all this movement. And so that was a very big challenge for us. But I guess it helped too that I wasn't there beforehand, so it was all new to me, and whatever came before me, I mean, it was important where things were, or understanding where things were, but it also helped me having a clean slate and being able to build. So, well, I think being a supervisor, that actually taught me a lot about, not only is it important to build that unit, but I feel like as a supervisor you deal more with personalities than you do with the actual work. If you have the team and the right people who know what they're doing, you're not really doing too much work with, or at least I didn't. I wasn't doing too much work with their actual products, or, you know, sure, I'm reviewing them, but it taught me a lot about building analysts personally too, training and making sure that they're set up for success, and so I don't really have to do much, but just giving them like the tools. And so a lot of the training I went to really wasn't about crime analysis anymore. It was now it was about handling a unit, handling personalities, making sure that they're successful because their success is my success. And so that was really different for me, and especially still being fairly new in the field. It wasn't my favorite. I'll be honest, it was not my favorite. I like working cases, and so instead it was just kind of guiding them and I had to tell myself that I had to be confident in my choices, even as a new analyst, and because if they saw any type of, I don't want to say fluctuation, I don't think that's the right term, but any wavering of confidence, or if they needed me to stand up for them because I have to go speak to another supervisor about something, I wanted to be the person to step up for them, and I needed to make sure I had their back. And so all of that was very different. I don't think I'd ever taken any classes on doing that, but I think the responsibility was different. Like, I felt like I had the responsibility of having their back, but it was different. Like, I needed them to feel confident in their work and that they were valued. So anytime they told me, oh, I'm running into this issue, like, I can suggest to them, hey, go talk to the person. Maybe they just don't understand your product, or maybe they have some input that might help our product. So that's always good, constructive criticism. But at the same time, it's like I have to go, and now I have to put out this fire, or at least have a conversation with whoever it is. Maybe someone else's supervisor, which is different for me too. But going direct to another supervisor and saying, hey, I heard this happened, and what can we do to fix it, or what are we going to do moving forward? I'm very goal and task oriented, so if I see a problem, then I can visualize the goal. Now I need to put the task in between to make sure that I hit that goal. So very, very much like that my whole career. So just making sure that I'm always searching for solutions. And I used to tell the analysts that. The analysts I supervise, if you have a problem, don't just come to me with a problem. Like, I want you to actually kind of think about it and suggest different ways to fix problems we may have, or issues, or so I always really push that a lot, because the problem isn't necessarily always going to just be my problem. Like, I'll always help, but I want them to be a part of fixing a problem, and I think that's where we get the buy-in from the department. So I was also very strategic, and I would go home a lot and think about our issues that we had. Probably a lot more than I should have, but I would just go home and I'd think about it, and how do we get buy-in from, they have the 4 platoons, and like one of them just was not into hearing anything that we were going to give them. And so whenever I saw that, it was more of a challenge, like, okay, so how do I break this down and get them on my side? Because I can't have a whole platoon not listen to us. Like, the whole department's going in this direction, we can't leave them behind. So then I was strategic. Like, I would go and meet with the lieutenant, talk to the sergeants, what are your problems you're seeing on your shift? But then I was specifically picking out officers that I knew had they had the buy-in from the other officers. Like, they may be the ones that were a lot more outspoken. So I'm like, if they're being outspoken about not liking my product, I'm going to make them outspoken about liking my product. So I would just bring them to the table and say, hey, I know you work this area, and this is what the data is telling me, but what can you tell me about it? And I would tell them, though, when I go and I present at our weekly meetings, that I'm going to say, I spoke to you, and here's your input, the human input, because a lot of it, like digging into the data, it's not always going to tell you everything. The reports aren't always going to tell you everything, and so actually having their input, and then now it's not just my product, it's your product too. So once I push it out there and I say, hey, I spoke to Officer so-and-so, and here's the part that they're giving us, I think a lot of other officers use the products because they saw, oh, they worked on it, like the analysts worked on it with this officer who, we'll follow him, wherever he goes. So that's probably one of, I've never admitted it to the officers, but I just use that as like an example, because sometimes you just have to, there's a lot more tools in what you can use, like to help a unit really progress in a department. So I think people underestimate, just pulling in as many people as you can and making them feel like they're included in this problem. So I would say the biggest thing that I got out of the association was the networking. Because if I had questions, then I knew someone that I could just reach out to and ask, and I wasn't just asking Google. I think when you're able to ask someone who has experience and you can take away from what they know, and I think everyone's been really helpful though. I don't ever feel like I'm annoying anyone if I call them or email them, and now that I'm in the position, I have the experience that I have, like I'm always trying to do the same for other people too, like call me, email me. I think it was because of my experience with MACA. Like I feel like I owe it to the profession to help who I can. The classes are great. So I always say MACA has like one of the best annual conferences. They have great speakers, and now this is my first time at IACA, and I'd love to come back. But they have, it's quality training. It's not the same old, like, oh, we're gonna, like Esri is always going to teach Esri products and how to use their stuff, but they're always evolving too on how you can use their product with what issues you're going to be looking at. But yeah, I was thinking, I do like coming to these conferences, and like the Virginia Crime Analysis Network is one that I'm in now, and they do a lot of best practices, and you don't have to take it. So while I'm listening to these presentations, I'm trying to look at the current situation I'm in and figure out what pieces I can take. I may not do it exactly how that agency does it, because every agency is different, but I try to find solutions to different problems that I may have, and I'll go back and try that. And but I think that's good, being able to see these different examples of things that other agencies are doing, and being able to go back and try it. But so it's a little different now, like what I do. So when I started in crime analysis, and then so I've been with state police for 5 years now. I just hit 5 years in the spring. I remind everyone that too, because my contract was 3, and so but I've been with state police for 5 years, and when I made the transition over, I knew I wouldn't be doing traditional crime analysis. It's just too large of a area. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I was talking to Chris Bruce about it, but so when I came over to state, during my interview, they asked me why I was going over to them. And I told them, as a supervisor, I wasn't growing as an analyst. I wasn't. I was taking care of other people and making sure that they were growing, and I really missed doing the work. So I made the transition over to state police, and then was assigned to the Virginia Fusion Center. So I work there now in our field intel program. And it was a lot more enjoyable for me, because we were doing a little bit of everything, and being in the field, like we're literally working with drug task forces, local agencies on all of their case support, and then being at a state agency, now I'm working bigger cases, working drug cartels, and identifying new drug trends that we have to push out to people, fentanyl. We're doing a statewide threat assessment. We do that every year, and I would say my favorite thing, and I think there's a part of me that still likes trying to prove something. And I like when the task force guys reach out to me and they're working a big case, and they give me a nickname, and they just say, hey, our next target is whoever. You think you could figure out who it is? And they might just give me 1 or 2 pieces of information, and that's all they have. And I like identifying who that target is. Like I really enjoy doing that, and I love working with the marshals when they're hunting people, I guess, but trying to give them connections and associations to people. And so I really do enjoy being able to help a case move forward by identifying people. I think it's fun for me. So, because it's definitely a challenge. I mean, there's so many people out there, and everyone, there could be hundreds of people who have the same nickname, but I just need a little bit more. And I don't want to tell you my secret, but I'm usually pretty good. I would say 8 to 9 times out of 10, I can probably figure out who the person is, and I like that. I usually ask the TFOs, what do I get if I figure this out? And they're like, well, tell your boss that you deserve a raise. And usually they just pay me in lunch, but I really enjoy that. So I got introduced to special events, so that was a big one. When I came on with State Police in 2017, that's when they had the big Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, and I cover that area. So, and I'm one analyst, so one analyst covering a whole division. So I have about 18 jurisdictions that I am a liaison and representative for State Police for our Fusion Center. But I kind of got thrown into the mix, and it was a very quick and steep learning curve on the role that State Police plays in an incident like that. And but I think it put me on like a fast track. So as soon as people could see right away, I think I started in May. They had a Klan rally in June, and they used that as a bridge or a base for what we were going to expect in August of 2017 in Charlottesville, and it was everything that we predicted it to be. So I mean, there's definitely a potential for violence, and we saw that, and nice little thing I put on my resume too. So it was my first IACA conference. I've been to several VCAN just because I'm in Virginia. MACA I haven't been back to in probably 9 years. I go to National Fusion Center Association conference. Usually I go every year, and I love that conference too. I mean, every fusion center is represented there, and the directors go. They have a day that's for directors and analysts. So that's really nice. I did a panel interview there for FBI. I did it with FBI for their analytical writing course, and that was interesting because it was mostly directors in the room, and so they just wanted to ask about our experience and whether we thought it was worth it. It's a 2-week class where FBI tells them, when they're in this class, that's all they're doing. So we're not doing extra work that, they're like, hey, after class, work on this, or because we're actually doing homework from this writing class. And but yeah, I've presented at NFCA, and but I like it. I mean, it's a little different, honestly, because I feel like when I started going to MACA, and not that I'm not doing this now, but I tried really hard to network and really put myself out there before, and then now, I mean, I present, and then people come and talk to me, and if I'm at a presentation, I'll go talk to the presenter after. But well, I think if it weren't for, and sometimes I've brought up Dawn and Glenn and Chris Bruce. Like when I first met Chris, I knew of him, and I knew he was up there in the crime analysis field. And I met him at MACA at the hospitality suite, and I told myself I will not ask him about crime analysis. Not going to happen. So I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I went in there with a plan, but I was like, I'm going to introduce myself to him. And I just remember hearing him talk throughout the week, and he just is such like an intelligent person. So when I met him, I asked him, so what do you do when you're not doing this? And he just stared. I don't even know if he remembers this, but he just stared at me and was like confused about it. And he was like, what do you mean? And I said, when you're not doing crime analysis, what are you doing? Like, tell me about you. Like, I want to know about who you are. And I was like this college kid too, like brand new. And he said, I don't know. I guess no one's ever asked me that before. But that kind of started our friendship too. So it wasn't just professional. Like I think the world of Chris, and I think when he started giving me the time of day, like where I would ask him questions, and before I moved to Virginia, we actually hung out. He took me to dinner, and we just talked about what I was going to do when I get to Virginia. So in that 2-week time frame that I had, he made the time for me, and that meant a lot to me. Him, and then again with Glenn and Dawn, I think them just believing in me and making me feel comfortable that I can talk to people in the field and ask them about their experiences, and getting advice from people in the hospitality suite, really. I mean, that's a perfect opportunity. You're not bothering them during a session. You're not stopping them. So yeah, you're not stopping them in the hall and while they're trying to get somewhere. But I wanted people to talk about themselves. As you were saying earlier, people love talking about themselves. So I'm going to get them to tell me their story and then give me advice that I can learn from as I was starting. So see, that's why I say, like, it's tough to say one person, but if I could say groups of people, like Maca definitely helped me with my foundation and gave me the confidence I needed. Just learning from everyone there, and then them believing in me was something. And I want to say the challenges that these officers gave me, though. It drove me to want to do better every day. And there were a few that I couldn't break, but the ones that I did break, and I feel like I had to rise to the challenge. I know it's so cliche, but you have to. If you really want to do well in this field and you really want to make an impact, you're going to have to bring everyone along for the ride. It can't just be you, and in order to see that you're doing some good or making a difference in an agency, you have to bring everyone with you. Whether they want to or not, you're going to pull them along on the ride, and hopefully in a couple of years after using your products and stuff, or even when you leave, when you go to another agency, that they look back and they're like, wow, like we've come a long way too. Like in the last couple of years, started with the Intel unit and everything, and now we're where we are. And you always hope, like I hope that it continued after I left from Roanoke City. And I don't know if it has or it hasn't, because I work a completely different area that doesn't cover there. So I do keep in touch with some of the people there, and they tell me about, they still reach out to me, and they do tell me some challenges they have, and they're like, how do you think we can fix this? And I just tell them, I don't know, maybe you give me a department car, I'll come back. I joke with them about that. I know that would never happen, but yeah, I think those challenges from the officers really drove me. So some people might look at that as like a negative experience, and there were times I'm sure I thought that when I went home, and this was just an awful day because no one listened to me, or no one's using my product, or they used it and it didn't have the impact I thought it would. But that just really drove me. And then my parents. So I guess like these groups appeal. My parents, my family, they always told me that if it didn't work out in Virginia, I could always come back. And they ask me every Christmas if I'm moving back up north, and I hate the snow, so I'm not going back. So I told them they should move down. But I think I think I made a good career and life decision for myself coming down to Virginia, or going down to Virginia. And if it wasn't for Maca giving me the tools to know that even though I'm going states away, I still kept in touch with Glenn, and I would ask him for suggestions on things, and Chris Bruce, I would talk to him, and they're so far away from me, distance-wise and geographically, but they were still there to guide me and give me advice. So I think, yeah, I mean, I guess it's made it helpful. And I think even with as much experience or years of experience, or going through challenges, you learn a lot. I think being humble is very important, because you never know everything. And there's always different aspects that you need to understand. And I think a good example of that is the sworn aspect, making sure that you're understanding. I mean, at the end of the day, they're the people using your end product anyways, but they bring in a lot of experience themselves. And I've had conversations with people when I'm describing or going over a product with them, and I tell them, especially if it's a sworn person, I just tell them, feel free to give me your input as well, because this product can be a lot better with your input. And so just, I guess, being humble, because you can always learn. And I think what you learn can only make your analysis better. And then to always help others. I think that's a big one that I stand by, because I say it all the time, but I would not be where I am without the help from others, and those that came before me and told me their experiences and guided me. So once you feel like you're comfortable enough to help others, to take advantage of that. I've had one intern. No, I've had several interns, but there was one that when I was in the field program, they rode with me and picked them up twice a week and tried to teach them the ropes a little bit. And at first that was challenging for me, because I'm very fast-paced, and now I'm trying to be fast-paced and bring someone with me. But one of my professors told me that. It wasn't Don, but he was an advisor for me at UMass Lowell, and he was kind of helping me. He was guiding me, and he said, just remember that down the road, if someone needs your help, that you help them. And that has always stood with me, and then the experience with MACA. So being humble and being always open to learning from other people, no matter what stage you're at, and then also helping others, I think is a big one, because once you're not doing the analytical work anymore, there's got to be people that you've helped to take your place, or that could actually do better than you, because you always want them to do better than you. So, yeah. Thank you for having me. So this will be another one, another checklist thing. I haven't done this before, so.
That was Chanthu Terwilliger, crime and intelligence analyst, mentor, and friend. Thanks for checking out this episode of the All About Analysis channel. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like, hit subscribe, and click that bell so you don't miss any of our new episodes. See you next time.